Hello, I'm Molly Turner, and I'm here to moderate a panel of North Amherst residents who want to discuss the Article 17, which is going to come before town meeting on Wednesday. That's November 16th. And these Amherst residents, or North Amherst residents, have some concerns which they feel have not been addressed so far. And we have a panel of 4 residents. There is Melissa Perot, who lives on Summer Street and has been a resident for 2 years. There's Janet Keller, who has been a resident of Pulpit Hill, which is co-housing. There is Valerie Valerie Cooley of Montague Road, and she has come here with her family to live in North Amherst. And there's Pat Holland, who is a long-term resident on Montague Road. You can each introduce yourself further as we get into the program. But the first question I want to ask is, how long have you been working on these issues, the issues of the rezoning of North Amherst, and did you participate in the charrette? Janet.
Sometimes it seems like we've been working on this forever, but it's actually only 18 months. We began working on it right after the walkabout that the town had in the town of in North Amherst Village Center in May of 2010. And we came up with a vision that we gave to the planning department in March of this year, and we certainly all went to the charrette, as did about 100 other people.
Pat, did you, were you part of all of this planning together, or were you part of the master plan? How long have you really been thinking about what happens up there in North Amherst?
Well, I've been thinking about it ever since I've moved there. North Amherst is characterized by some very beautiful houses and farms and recreation areas. And then it has a few places that need improvement drastically. And so I've been thinking about this for a long time. I got involved with it on that first walkabout back in May of last year, and have been working closely with many neighbors, some of whom are here, on the whole issue, particularly after we got word from the planning board that they wanted to rezone some property up there, including the land that I live on.
Now, let's go to Valerie. What issues concern you about this rezoning?
Well, if I can give a little background on me
yes,
too first,
please.
And then I'm happy to mention that. My husband and I bought the home about 15 years ago, so we've been North Amherst residents for that long, before we had children. And I say that because a big reason why I'm involved now is because I am one of the few families remaining in North Amherst, and I'm very concerned about how this potential zoning may impact families. I also was involved in the walkabout and the charrette and multiple zoning subcommittee meetings and planning meetings and select board meetings. I have written lots of emails to people. I will say, even prior to this formal process, though, my husband and I were concerned about the existing village center, and there is a property there just south of the Mill River in between Montague Road and Sunderland Road that has been for sale for as long as I can remember. And we know that it's prime property and could be developed in a way that benefits the residents in the larger town. And we went to look at it with a realtor, and we have no hope of being able to purchase it on our own. But already, and that was several years ago before this charrette, we began thinking about what could happen in North Amherst. And I'm very excited about what could happen. As somebody with a family there, I'm very excited about the positives, the park and the library, and all the great things for families, but I have some concerns as well.
All right, we'll put your concerns on hold, and
okay.
We'll go to Melissa. And Melissa, what are the issues which perhaps are not so positive that you're concerned about?
Well, I came to North Amherst. I intended to go to Amherst town, but the properties were rather expensive there, and we weren't finding what we wanted. And we found this property on Summer Street, which was prime property for students. It was had not been well maintained, and we decided to get it, and we insulated the whole place and planted gardens and made it, we brought it back to its 1900 feel.
It's beautiful. I live next door to her, and I'm so grateful that she and her husband bought it.
And I was very hesitant, but I found the conservation area next door, and nature and walking is my love. I'm from England, and so and I could walk to it without even getting on pavement. So that really turned me over to thinking this was a good place to be. And my issue is that this wonderful recreational conservation area runs right through the village center. Now, how fortunate could a place be to have water running through it like that? And I just wanted to open that up and make that available to the public. Right now, there are signs on the north side of it saying no trespassing. And that's a very sad thing to me, coming from England, because you're allowed to walk where there's next to the waters.
Well, I'm confused right now. Why wouldn't this rezoning address that satisfactorily?
Well,
Janet?
I wonder if we can take a look at this summary report that came out of the public design workshop that the Cecil Group held in May, and then they issued this report in July. And you can see that they've blocked off in colors various places that they wanted to emphasize. So they've got a civic core in yellow, and that would provide some parking for the library, which is badly needed, for the parish house, which is also badly needed. One of the reasons the North Church and parish house had a problem was lack of parking. Give them a proper green for a setting. It would create a development in the heart there, that little, the orange triangle in the middle, for potential development that could be mixed use development. It would have commercial development as we do now along Sunderland Road, and it would maintain the residential zoning along Montague Road and extend that character along Coles Road as well. All of them marked in this. It's really important that residential zoning be continued on Montague Road, because it, together with the historic resources in the core and on North Pleasant Street, are things that the town is named as potential historic resources to be put into protected local historic zoning.
So why doesn't Article 17 address this?
Well, let's take a look at another map then, and I think it'll become very clear. Let's look at the same places. Let's look at the civic core here, and look at the area covered in orange, and that includes the civic core where the historic resources are, where the North Church, Parish House, etc. It also includes all along Montague Road, which also has historic properties as well as stable residential neighborhoods. And it rezones a lot of that for North Amherst Village Center. And as you can see here, that orange area is a very intense use area. Mixed use, commercial plus multifamily, up to 25 units in a building with 85% lot coverage. So you've got National Historic Register resources in the core. Pat could actually speak better to this than I can, but they would not be protected if someone wanted to build there. It looks like they could be put in danger, and I would turn that piece over to Pat. But we could go along that way, all along the map: water resources, farm resources, etc.
So Pat, what I see, the difference between these two plans is like night and day. One is the charrette, which was, the neighbors participated in that
Yes.
exercise. And this is, where did this plan come from?
This came out later, and it came as a great shock to us who lived there. It was fairly clear to us that it was produced by the town planners to accommodate the two major developers up there in North Amherst, Cinda Jones and Barbara Puffer Garnier, who own most of that land, not all, but a great part of that land that is now orange. There's some other owners too. But what was appalling to me about Montague Road was that both of these developers have shown plans for Montague Road that would entail tearing down the 19th century housing stock that they own there on the west side of Montague Road, and replacing it with apartments, probably townhouses. Well, these 19th century buildings are a major part of the charm of North Amherst. This is a traditional late 19th century town with a beautiful library, a very old early 19th century church, and an old-fashioned common down on North Pleasant Street, and then it stretches out on residences along Montague Road that are all different from one another, but all have this really nice quality of the late 19th century form, with a major front house, a back porch, back wing, and sometimes attaching to a barn. The ones on the west side are rentals already. That works out pretty well, but we have had problems with noise from residents there. But it's the density that's being proposed that is the biggest source of horror, I would say, to us.
Well, I'm struck with the difference between these two plans.
Yes.
And how this came about. And when you mentioned that there are some big landowners,
yes,
it brings up a question in my mind: are you familiar with the Article 1 of the Amherst zoning bylaw? This is supposed to be enacted pursuant to and under the authority of Chapter 40A of the General Laws of Massachusetts. It is for the general purpose is for the promoting the health, safety, convenience, and general welfare of the inhabitants of the town of Amherst. Now, you are inhabitants or residents of Amherst, and I suppose the landowners are also residents, or are they not?
No, in fact, they are not. Their families have been in Amherst in the past, but they are, each of them, residents elsewhere now.
Right. Does anyone have any more comment about the Article 1?
Well, I think what also was striking was the timing. This occurred, recall that you're absolutely right about the health, safety, convenience, and general welfare issues. And what I would say is that that first map and the summary report spoke to that and said, let's build on what's good, let's address what's a problem. But the new zoning really doesn't speak to the improvements that we were seeking and that we hoped would bring back or take up to the 21st century the kind of community that had been so treasured by folks who had lived there in the past.
Can I speak to the
Yes.
safety issue?
Yes,
that was
please,
part of the zoning
Valerie.
bylaw, the safety of the residents there. And as a mom with two boys who are getting older and pushing for their independence and want to walk places more on their own, like the library and like the park, one of my biggest concerns, and I have many, is simply the increased traffic that this level of increase in population density will bring. And while some of the provisions of the form-based zoning could possibly address those concerns, it's been made clear by some of the members of the zoning subcommittee that if the municipality wants to change roads, for example, to improve sidewalks or develop pedestrian crosswalks that would improve safety, or put in traffic calming, right, that would improve safety, they're not obligated to do that. If they ever choose to make those infrastructure changes, then they'll have to. But this zoning bylaw change will not require them to do that. So what it does is it allows a big increase in population density while possibly offering some solutions for safety concerns that go along with all of the extra cars, not only because of the number of people, but also the traffic in and out of some of the commercial properties that would be allowed on Montague Road. So, that's one of my big concerns, is that this Article 17, as proposed, does not address, for me as a mom, my primary safety concern for my children.
That's a big concern, but it's one. There are others. Who wants to speak to the others? Melissa?
Yes, the traffic is certainly a concern. One of the purposes of the master plan was that we should try and live and work and do our business in the area as much as possible, and to reduce car use.
Yes.
and this article does nothing to promote that view. It not only provides an awful lot more people, it does not necessarily provide the services and businesses and so forth that those people will need in the area. And neither does it promote public transportation.
Right.
I am fortunate to have purchased a house with a bus stop outside it with public transportation into the town, which I use. There are no bus shelters for the bus stops in North Amherst, and the sidewalks are positively treacherous if you try to get home by foot after you've got off the bus. And the lighting is poor and outdated. So this zoning does nothing to promote the use of public transport or bicycles, because we have a really seriously dangerous intersection at Pine Street where Sunderland and Montague come together. And if you're on a bike there going uphill and against the traffic, it is truly, it's difficult.
So you would say that this article is not providing the safety that is required for the residents and the inhabitants of North Amherst. And not only that, it does not promote some of the goals of the master plan.
Correct.
Has anybody got anything to add to other problems with this zoning article? Janet?
One thing I think we should look at, we're looking at the map now, and you can see the farmland that is woven in and around the North Amherst Village. And one of the things that's so important and was so important to us as we looked at the future for the village was, how can we support these working farms that are an amazing asset for our village, and that the farmers had just begun to establish a year-round farmers market. They were looking to establish a production facility for the products that they of their harvest and the animals that they raise, and they wanted a year-round indoor facility that they could also use to sell those products. And we were very eager to see that happen. What this does instead is the apartment buildings, the multifamily uses, could be right up along the borders of these working farms and these very important farmland that you see here. And farmers need to be next to farmers, and farmland needs to be next to farmland, not apartment buildings. People in the apartment buildings don't like it if you spread manure on the fields. They don't like the noise from the farm machinery. And so we're very concerned about that, and we feel that not only could the rezoning not be the thing to help the town, but it could actually hinder some of this very promising development that means so much to the community.
Pat, do you?
Yeah, I just like to say too that the farmers that I've been talking to in the North Amherst area are in some ways attracted to the rezoning idea because they could use some more customers. So they like the idea of enhancing the amount of buildings that are there. And we too like that idea. I think that if you do have some more buildings and you have more customers for businesses, we would love to have coffee shops come up there. We tried to get Atkins Farms to have a branch, but they were not ready and I think not willing to do it. More people would be good. It's where you put them, and we want them in the core of Amherst Center, below the river there. Where there's this big warehouse that's been for sale for many years now, and that would be fine, especially if it were done. Laura Fitch has made a plan for the Garnier family, which, although it involves destruction of houses on Montague Road, it also involves, and I like this part of it, developing the river that runs through there and working out housing that would be on the Sunderland side in North Amherst, where there are already some businesses located.
So we could say that this group of the residents of North Amherst are not against changes.
No.
They would
That's right.
look forward to some positive changes, and a rezoning would be fine, but not this rezoning.
Exactly, and that's what we want to do. We want to carry on the discussion. We want to starting in January. We'll take a little break, let things calm down, we hope. Start in January, and Laura here has a great deal of experience with searching out grants and all kinds of things to do with town planning. To deal with brownfields up there, for one thing, to deal with traffic issues, which are, as we've heard, a major concern. Transportation issues. The buses are nice, but they run very infrequently up there. And figure out what we want, what would really be nice. And I was talking to somebody today, or the other day, who said that, brought up the idea of Florence, Massachusetts, which has managed to do a marvelous job of reconverting old buildings and yet maintaining a family feel to it. And something like that would be really nice to get going in North Amherst.
Well, I want to go back to the plan of the original charrette, which seems to be closer to what you're looking for. Why not that plan? How difficult would it be to resurrect this?
I don't know that we can answer that question, but I just want to reaffirm that I am in favor of development and along the lines of what it was clear that the community said. I think that the Article 17 proposes too much too fast, and that this plan is a slightly more gradual process that does allow growth, but also helps us to figure it out as we go. So it's not just quick growth, but it's really smart growth that will bring the community that everybody wants. And I don't mean to speak for you guys, but I don't know if we can answer why it moved from that
my
to what it is
question
now.
would it be possible, if there was
Sure.
enough agreement to implement this plan, maybe improved a little bit? Does anybody
I
know?
certainly think so. There are sources of fund, as Pat indicated. There are state transportation funds that could be tapped. There are federal transportation funds, same with historic, same with agricultural, also with economic development. And it seems to me that's where we start first. The town is already thinking about historic preservation of the buildings in the core and along Montague Road and North Pleasant Street. Why wait? So I think it's not as though it would be a walk in the park exactly. It would be work. There's no question about it. But North Amherst is worth it. North Amherst deserves it. And it can be done. I've seen it done in other places where I've lived and worked on projects like this. And I'm looking forward, no matter what happens with the zoning, that we keep working on this vision.
Well, you are talking about sources of funding for this vision, but who has funded the vision that is being put before town meeting on Wednesday? Who funds that?
Well, the town hired the Cecil
Yes.
group as consultants who produced this, and then the town planning office took those results and changed them in a number of ways.
So it would be what happens, anything that happens to further planning there will be footed by the town and not necessarily by the funding sources that you were talking about seeking.
Well, if the town were committed to that plan, this plan that we're looking at, then the town would certainly be involved. Towns often, or the Regional Planning Association, or would apply for the plans, work on the model, the rezoning, the historic district ordinance for the historic properties. So we're looking forward to a partnership with the town on that. That's how that works. The issue is that zoning is not the key, or is not the key nor the first thing that you do when you want to bring a community to a much better vision.
Would you say that this vision of the planning department is being imposed on the residents of North Amherst?
I would say that.
You would.
It feels that way.
Very much so.
Yeah.
I would say that 100 people thought it was really important to come to that charrette. Some other neighbors have been working on this for 18 months. I would hope that they would recognize that people felt that was important and want to see it go forward.
Well, we are coming to the end of this session, this informational session about the development proposed for North Amherst, and so I'm going to thank each one of you. But you have 30 seconds or so to wrap up what you want to say, your last words, and we'll start with Melissa.
Well, I just want to get back to the energy and creativity that we felt at the charrette when everybody was gathered there together. It was a cooperative and lively meeting, and it had tremendous energy in it. And if that energy could be put to the good use of North Amherst, I think everything would be successful.
Okay, Valerie, last words.
The master plan promotes sustainability, and I know that definition varies from person to person, but for me, part of sustainability means my family can stay there for a very long time. And I'm very excited about being a part of redeveloping North Amherst, and I think we can do that with a plan that addresses the safety concerns of families before we allow this big increase in population density and a large increase in the proportion of renter-occupied units. So I want us to keep remembering how to keep families there. We all know they're a vital part of a vigorous village center. So,
Pat.
What I seek in this process is a balance between development and change and innovation, which I do support, but also protection of what makes that part of town special and especially attractive. And I think of the 19th century character of the buildings. I think of the beautiful 19th century library there, the church, and on North Pleasant Street, that old-fashioned common there.
Right. And Janet Keller.
First things first is what I would hope, and that we could all work on this vision and make North Amherst the place that it was intended to be.
Thank you very much. That's Janet Keller, Pat Holland, Valerie Cooley, and Melissa Perot, all of North Amherst. Thank you for watching. I'm Molly Turner.